live on Zoom. All right. So I think this is webinar 6 for us in our Tech for Good series. So it's been great to see the diversity of what people have got to talk about. And so, yeah, delighted, Beck, to have you on with us this afternoon, talking about how to rebuild your volunteer workforce and how to attract new volunteers in a new world, because we are in a new world these days. As you said, you won't be going back yourself for a few more months, so I dare say there'll be a lot of volunteer organisations taking a similar approach to when they and how they will reintroduce volunteers, really. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, definitely. I think, every business, every part of the country, different states are at different stages. So we just thought we'd take the opportunity today to share some insights from Seek Volunteer and also Seek about what's going on and how that might help the volunteer world. Yeah.
Well, look, we'll wait for others to trickle in, but it's gone past 2 o'clock, and so I'll hand over to you. But first of all, let me introduce Beck Miller. She's the lead at Seek Volunteer. Been in the role 3 years. Is it that long now?
Yeah, 3
Great
years.
stuff, making an impact, no doubt about that. And it's been a great relationship that we've had with Seek Volunteering Victoria for a number of those years. And so it's a delight that we can share this stage today and learn more about what your thoughts are on said topic, share some ideas with our attendees this afternoon. So
great.
I'll hand it over to you, Beck.
Thanks, Scott. I will share my screen. Hopefully it will work if someone can let me know on the other end.
Yep, good as gold.
Let's go. And yeah.
Yep.
Great, fabulous. Okay, so I thought I'd share just, let's just go. I thought I'd just open a little bit with Seek Volunteer. We're not going to talk, today is definitely not a huge promotion of our products or our service. Most of you out there know what we do. But I thought I'd just kick off with 2 things, which is the overall purpose of Seek, our kind of mothership organisation, which is to help people live fulfilling and productive working lives and help organisations succeed. So when you see that, you can see there's no reason that Seek Volunteer would need our own purpose statement, because if you took out working, we're really here to help people live fulfilling and productive lives and help VIOs succeed. So it works really well for us being a marketplace and supporting both sides of that marketplace. What we did late last year is we actually developed a vision statement for Seek Volunteer. The main reason for us was to just create, help us prioritise and give us a little bit of a long-term view of things. We did a bit of work and came up with what you see there, which is to connect more people to volunteer opportunities that enrich their communities, lives and career. Prior to that, and when I took this role, Scott mentioned 3 years ago, we are all, about social impact. But what we realised is actually if we can leverage some of the big Seek channels, because we are Seek, create some connections with those people that are looking to progress their career or might be unemployed, it's a huge opportunity for us to create more social impact by accessing those channels as well. So that's our current vision statement for Seek Volunteer that helps drive us forward. And I guess, mutual and multi-benefits for everyone involved. So why are we here today? I guess when I mentioned to Scott this topic, we wanted to do something a little bit relevant to right now. And so what we thought we'd talk about is how to rebuild the volunteer workforce on the other side of COVID-19 and how to attract new volunteers in a new world. So what we'll do today is share with you some insights, as I mentioned, that we have from Seek Volunteer and from Seek, that will hopefully help everyone shape their volunteer opportunities to the new world and really attract more volunteers than if you're looking for them. So the main things that I wanted to do to kick off is actually start with a conversation. So Scott, are we able to open up the conversation so that people can actually chat?
Yeah, let's do it.
Verbally rather than just through the chat room?
Yep, definitely. I think they may need to raise their hand on Zoom and then I can allow them to talk. So
okay.
If somebody wants to try that, we can test the
Okay.
technology here. So,
Test the technology and be brave, because it only takes one to kick it off. So here's the discussion that I just wanted to have for 5 minutes. So we haven't validated this data, but through lots of conversations, it's kind of estimated that around about 30% of the volunteer workforce won't return to their volunteer roles post-COVID. So that's for a couple of reasons. Might be because it's part of that sort of older volunteer workforce, and they're in a high risk category, so they're being more risk averse. It might be that they were in a really stable job, they had a bit more time on their hands, but now they might be unemployed, so they're focusing fully on that. Whatever it might be, people's personal circumstances have changed significantly in the last 4 to 5 months. So I thought I'd just open it up for a quick conversation to get some, just make today a little bit more personal. Do you feel this is the case for your organisation? What do you think are some of the reasons, or are you hearing some of the reasons why people won't return? And I guess generally, whether it's right now or from your experience, what are the most common recruitment challenges you've had in the past? Because then we can kind of incorporate those into the webinar today and maybe address some of them specifically. So anyone being brave, it can be, I know we have not all volunteer managers on the line. So any other insights, if you've got a slightly different role, feel free to share as well your thoughts or views.
So Beck, Lael Ward has put up their hand, so we'll let them talk here, and over to you, Lael, once you've unmuted yourself here.
Okay, I think I've caught on. Am I right?
Yeah, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Look, I work for Monash Health, so I work for a major organisation with hospitals and you know, a myriad of medical centres and bits and pieces. And I would say one of the first things you said for us in relation to volunteers, when you have a look at the average age of volunteering being, I think I read the volunteering in Victoria was somewhere around 68 point something or other. They are going to fall into that sort of, I guess, more vulnerable, high risk category. While I think many would like still to return, I think there's a fear, not just from them, but from their families. So I've got a lot discussing with me in the background about, you know, my family is saying, well, I don't want you to return. So when we do talk about that type of age group, again, our average age, I think, I do think that we will have those sort of losses, but maybe not just because they don't want to come back to volunteering, because their community around them is concerned about their vulnerability.
That's a really interesting point you make there, Lael.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
While we're waiting for any brave souls to put their hand up, we'll talk about that. You know, there's a question that we've put to Justice Connect at the moment about the liability on organisations. There was a recommendation, and we're not providing an opinion one way or another yet, that organisations may seek to obtain a waiver for their volunteers should they get COVID as a result of their volunteering. So that kind of feeds into what Lael was saying there in regards to that sort of risk that people are feeling, that, you know, this could be a big deal still. So, and obviously we're still being in stage 3 to a degree where there is kind of community transmission. It is a legitimate concern, isn't it? So I mean, you know, 30% Beck seems like a pretty reasonable sort of a number. How do you think you got that number by memory?
Just individual feedback. It's not it's a lick your finger, put it in the wind, talk to a few people, validate it at this stage. So we would really love to validate it. Yeah, good one.
Okay, well, we're a small group, so don't be scared, anybody else. We've got all afternoon to have anybody else feed into this sort of discussion. It makes it for a more interesting discourse if we can have other people kind of be as brave as Lael there. So by all means. In the meantime,
use the chat room as well. I can that as well.
By all means, hey,
Okay.
Right. We'll carry on then.
So, next slide's about what does the Seek volunteer data tell us. So we've done a little bit of work over the last probably 2 years to have a look at the type of people that are coming to the Seek volunteer site. And I thought it was really useful to share this information because it's probably a reasonable account across the board as well. So we've got these data from two sources. One is from everyone that has gone on to express interest on our site. So we're able to survey them and ask them the question. And for every 10 visitors, we convert about one person to an expression of interest. So then the other question was, what about the other 9? You know, what's happening to them? We've got the data about the one. So we also did, I guess, what you call an exit survey. So those people, as they left the site, there was a small incentive to fill in a couple of questions. And actually the data from both groups was pretty similar. So what you'll see there, and I should get much better at those reveal slides so that I'm not exposing all my insights at once. I'll learn that as a new skill. But 40% of people were actually there, as we expect, to just make a difference. They either want to contribute to their local community or a cause. What surprised us was probably this next stat, was that 40% of people were actually looking for a volunteer opportunity to progress their career. So they either want to use their skills and experience to enhance their career, or they want to use their skills and experience for social good, being they want to do skilled volunteering, which is still something that they'll most likely put on their resume that they've done. And then the third bucket was, I guess, what I'm calling a sense of belonging. So people who either wanted to build relationships or wanted to feel connected. So not always the older group. It could also be young people. They want to connect to a group of people who are like-minded around a specific cause. So as I said, the data was quite consistent across those two groups of people who went on to express interest and those who didn't. The other, you'll see down there, asterisk at the bottom that we asked was, of the people that did go on to volunteer, what percentage of people actually continued to have an ongoing relationship with their organisation? And we found that 75% of people did. If you can give them a good experience, you know, life will get in the way, yes, but 3 out of 4 people go on to have an ongoing relationship with their organisation, which was something we were interested in from a Seek Volunteer perspective, because we can create that initial connection, but what was happening after that was interesting to us. So what did we do with this data? This is my own little matrix that I developed, which I'd share today. I actually haven't shared this outside of Seek before, but I thought it was really interesting to share how we're thinking about people, and therefore how everyone can kind of tailor their opportunities to these different segments. So you'll see on the left-hand side there, we've got what's the primary intention of our audience. So whether they wanted to have a successful career, feel connected to their community or make a difference. Then across the bottom, you've got a life stage, and life stage is a little bit of a mishmash of a couple of things. So you've got people starting out, might be sort of 18 to 24-year-olds, people who are in still at school, either still at uni or maybe in their first job. Then you've got a big kind of segment of the market, which is probably most of us here, right? You're sort of somewhere between 25 and 65, but this is more defined by mindset. So you're either a builder or a changer, which is like, I want to build my career, I'm really ambitious, or I might want to change careers and I'm looking for ways to do that. And then the second part is contributors. So people who are a bit more satisfied and content in their job. So they're not looking for much change, and they really, these are the people that are, you know, really volunteering for the social impact and wanting to make a difference. And then the last group on the right-hand side, which we've sort of put all together, is our sort of retirees bucket, which we prefer to call our people in the encore stage of their life, which is, you know, people can be doing it for lots of different reasons. They do want to make a difference. They want that connection, but they also have some really useful skills that they can use as well. So what we did is actually looked at, and you'll see the statements of how that kind of matrix works. And I know most of you on the call, I don't need to explain probably the rest of it to you, but, you know, that's the mindset that those people are in. So how can we actually appeal to them? So for us, from a Seek Volunteer perspective, it's like, how do we market to them so that we can draw them to the platform so that they're applying for your volunteer opportunities? So we did all this amazing work last year, and then guess what? Coronavirus happened. So you go, okay, we'd sort of tried to do a bit of sizing around these kind of areas, and you're like, okay, here's what happened. Here's what we think happened, I guess. So previously what we called our little candidates, so job candidates who were looking to use volunteering to progress their career, a lot of people that were coming to the Seek platform, and I say Seek, not Seek Volunteer, a lot of the time they're in a job. They're just looking for a new job. But actually, people now are trying to do this from more of a position of being unemployed, given unemployment rates. So you've got to appeal to, you know, a little bit of probably a bit more anxious. You don't want to go too early with the volunteer messaging because actually they need to get cash in the door. So you've got to be a bit sensitive to how we market to them. Then you've got people who, if you look at skilled volunteering, people wanting to use their skills and experience in a rewarding way. What we've been trying to do recently, and we've actually got a great article coming up on Seek Volunteer later this week around a group of Jetstar employees who actually have done some skilled volunteering while they've been stood down. So you've got this new bunch of people who know they've got a job at some point, but really what they want to do is be productive with their time and have a bit of purpose in their day at the moment while they've been stood down. That group's coming to a very quick end, you know, as businesses reopen. Then, as we touched on, and I think, Lau, you touched on this, you know, if you look at the people in the retirees and the older group, a portion of our previous volunteers, they're now vulnerable, you know, because they're either older, they might have health issues, their family are being more risk averse than them. So they've got all these different pressures to not go back to their volunteer role for a while or maybe forever. Then you've got, I guess, this big chunk of people who just firstly through the bushfires in Victoria, New South Wales, and now through coronavirus, they just want to build a stronger community. They've been helping people, they've been looking after their neighbours, and I guess the challenge for us is how do you turn those people who have been doing informal volunteering to what I say, become a volunteer, not just volunteer for a one-off, but become a volunteer and build it into their fabric. So how do we actually target those people? And really one thing that we don't have to do right now is usually, you know, motivate them or inspire them. They're already inspired. They actually just need to know where to go to find the opportunities. And then you've got the up and coming starters, right? And these are people that thought they were going to go and change the world. Their options here, instead of, you know, volunteering with a not-for-profit in Australia day to day, would be, you know, formerly they'd start a social enterprise. They'd go and volunteer overseas and they'd build houses in Cambodia and all these kind of really exciting things, which actually now aren't available to them. And the idea of maybe starting a social enterprise is just too risky right now. So they're temporarily looking more local to do things, and how do we tap into those guys as well, who also from a jobs perspective are being a little bit pushed further down the food chain, so to speak, because now they're going to be competing for jobs with people who have, you know, got a few extra years of experience under their belt. So the job market for them is really challenging. So they're looking at ways that they can stand out, be useful with their time and get some skills and experience while they're in the challenging jobs market. So that's my amazing diagrams of the universe and how we sort of have seen it playing out over time. So I guess, sorry, Scott.
I was going to say, it's a great diagram. I think it's got a lot of merit. And, you know, I think needs to be more segmentation of how we look at, you know, volunteers as distinct from each other. So congratulations.
Yeah, it helps us. I mean, the main reason we do this is for our marketing, to go, well, we don't want to do we do a lot of mass marketing. That's but right now there are these niches, and how do we actually move? And I guess the whole premise of part of our strategy at the moment at Seek Volunteer is how can we leverage, you know, this huge unemployed workforce at the moment to rebuild this 30% over here, you know. So if those people are coming to the Seek platform to find a job, our goal between Katrina, Matt and I is how do we influence internally to get Seek Volunteer and our volunteer opportunities in their kind of path. So that we pull them through to our site. But, you know, just generally a really great opportunity, I think, for volunteering, notwithstanding the challenges that come to society with everything that's going on. So I guess then just framing it a little bit differently, it's kind of a little bit like the so what. So if you look at some of these statements here, and I'll just give you a heads up, we are going to do a little 5-minute exercise at the end. So again, just getting into that headspace and how did those kind of statements change about how people are feeling. So right now, people either, if they're out of work, they want to be productive with their time while they look for work. They want purpose in their day because that routine of going to work has been taken away from them. They don't want there to be a gap on their resume. So they and they want to keep their skills and keep the, you know, stay on the tools, so to speak. And, you know, that I sort of touched on the younger generation. That makes me sound really old. But, you know, how can they actually get skills and experience to boost their resume and help them stand out to hirers? And importantly, this next one's really interesting. If you've been, say, in the same company for 20 years and you've just lost your role or something like that, how do you get new experience that you can use in a job interview rather than be rolling out the same kind of things? So a few things to just kind of think about there. The other interesting insight from Seek, interesting but not surprising, but validated through a lot of data, is what's happening is there's a lot of people at sort of the middle to senior management level right now who, if their company has been really great to them during this period and they've managed to retain their job, they're not looking to go anywhere for a while. So previously, things like salary, flexibility and work-life balance were huge, you know, things, the top three things that people valued in their job. Right now, it's job security. And I can't even remember what's a distant second, but in the last quarter, job security is number one. But what that means is someone who might have been starting to get a little bit bored or who might have been looking is actually going to sit in their role for longer. So they might be looking for something interesting to do on the side. And these are the people that have also been inspired to help others. So how do we tap into those guys as well and give them something new to keep them interested and going along the journey? So there's a couple of places that you can get some more, I guess, inspiration and advice and tips from our perspective. So we have a section on Seek Volunteer, like very insightfully called advice and tips. And over time you'll see, and I've just pulled out 3 little articles there about how we can connect volunteering to the career journey and skills and qualities that will make you be a great volunteer. We're going to work over the next 12 months on kind of reshaping that area of our site to really target what's going on, because it's probably a who knows, 2-5 year journey for society out of this. And then Seek also has a section on its site called Career Advice. And there's a lot of articles there that are really relevant. That's where we're trying to get, I guess, and get our little links through to our sites and your opportunities. And more than ever before, they're really interested in volunteering. The 2 things from our perspective are volunteering and also education, so online courses, something else people can do to kind of progress their career and add to their resume during this time. So if you're looking for any inspiration or advice and tips, and you'll see that's how we're getting in the hearts and minds of volunteers. And we send out a lot of EDMs to our database of volunteers to try to bring them to site to read these articles and get more inspiration and choose the right opportunity for them. So I guess it's, so what? What do we do next? There's no kind of magic wand here, but I guess there's 2 things, I guess, the way I see that, you know, this information is helpful to volunteer managers out there. You'll see on the right-hand side there, it's a copy of one of our kind of tips flyers, which is about how to write a great volunteer opportunity. You may have, if you've heard me speak before, you may have heard me bang on about this, but the insight here for us is, you know, it's like your volunteer ad is a piece of marketing. We at Seek, we have a whole customer service team for the jobs and employment website. So you can imagine Seek Volunteer is free, but if you're advertising a job on Seek, you've paid for that. And if after a week you've got no applications, you're like, well, hang on a minute, what's going on? You know, a cranky hirer rings up customer service. The first thing they're trained to do is to look at that job ad and see how it's written, because 9 times out of 10, it's usually pretty uninspiring. And so they're trained to actually work with the hirer to rewrite the ad, really appeal to the candidate. I'm not sure the exact timelines, but, you know, they send the hirer off and say, if you don't get any applications in the next few days, let us know. And 9 times out of 10, we don't hear back from them. So it's the same with us on Seek Volunteer. We can't vet every single opportunity that gets posted. So we try to give you as many tips and hints as we can. The main thing there is the short description. So you'll see that's what appears. And I've got 2 examples here, one from Save the Children and another from Citizens Advocacy. That's the thing that first appears to a volunteer on our site. Then you click through to the long description. You'll see there the first example I've given from Save the Children. First 3 words, need retail experience. You know, so they're just like, okay, bang, that's their kind of, that's what they're targeting, is someone who needs retail experience. The next one, not as good an example, but you'll say that's, you know, obviously appealing to a skilled volunteer account, but really, really, really sharp. And what I've found when I was actually doing this exercise is I found, like, in that short description, the things that appealed to me personally the most was actually when the first 2 or 3 lines was a question, because it's asking you that question as the volunteer, you know, and you're like, is that me? Yeah, that's me. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I am. Or no. And, you know, you go to the next one. So, I guess the tip from us is to really spend quite a bit of time. This is your movie trailer. This is how you appeal to the volunteer. So obviously we've talked about, like, a huge amount of segments in there. And I guess the one thing I wanted to point out is, you know, whether it's in this short description, the other thing is when you're talking to prospective volunteers, now that you know what you know from today, how can you use these insights when you're communicating with them to understand, you know, their primary intention, their current, you know, employment and life situation, so that you can create a better experience for them? Because if you're at that point of having a conversation with them, that's the hard part, right? Is getting people through the door. And as we've seen from that data, if you can give them a good experience, 3 out of 4 people will stay and have that ongoing relationship with your organisation, which, you know, not that I'm saying the utopia is you'd need Seek Volunteer again to recruit, but the more you can retain your existing volunteers, obviously, the better. So last little exercise, and I am flying through today, I should have said I don't expect to use the whole time. I want to do a little exercise. It's probably only 2 minutes. Anyone can play back their kind of notes they've taken, and then Scott, we might just open for a bit of a chat at the end if we can.
Great, brilliant.
So what I wanted to do, and I should have bought some lovely elevator music, is just spend 5 minutes. I think there's nothing worse than someone giving you all this great theory and not actually having the opportunity to put it into practice and embed some of the thinking that might be going through your head today. Is pick one of your volunteer opportunities and think of whether it's the most appropriate type of volunteer for that opportunity, or if you have someone in that role that's a volunteer at the moment, think about that volunteer and just come up with 1 or 2 punchy opening lines that would be for your short description that would attract their attention. So as I said, you can just use an existing scenario, or if you've got a current scenario where you're like, we really need volunteers, think about what I've said today, and I might go back to a couple of slides so that you've got it on the screen. Think about the 2 or 3 skills or traits that they could develop from doing this opportunity. It doesn't have to be, a lot of people think around career, it has to be skilled volunteering, and it absolutely doesn't. Like, if we think about all the other experiences that people get from, you know, stakeholder engagement, communication, working with others, problem solving, if there's some problem solving, all those other, I don't love the term softer skills because it makes them sound less important than the technical skills, but we do tend to call them softer skills that they might get. So I might just get comfortable with the silence. We mightn't do 5, we might just do 2 or 3 minutes, Scott, and just spend some time writing down and coming up with 1 or 2 punchy opening lines.
Sounds like a great activity, Beck. All right.
Oh. Maybe just one more minute.
Look forward to hearing what people have been able to come up with. It's a great opportunity to share some good ideas.
Okay. I'll kick off with mine, and then Scott, if anyone is interested in sharing and popping up their hand. I actually hadn't, just to come clean, I hadn't done this exercise and had anything pre-prepared. So I've literally been spending this time as well. But I just came up with one quite generic one, which was changing careers, ? Get some new experience by, and then you can talk about your volunteer opportunity.
Terrific. Well, here's an opportunity, folks, to share what you've done in the last couple of minutes with your own volunteer role that you've been maybe jazzing up and making even more exciting for the next time you need to list it on Seek Volunteer. My one, Beck, was about our events coordinator volunteer, and I've called it Maximize Our Movement. And I've said, grow our members' engagement and experience of our events in this exciting opportunity. You'll be able to learn and offer your skills, energy, and talents through this dynamic role. So hopefully, yeah, using that sense of urgency, that sense of opportunity for maybe for the younger folks that are just starting out to be able to get involved with that. But I agree, you know, it's a great opportunity to think about how we do this, because it is a competitive market out there in terms of getting great volunteers.
Anyone brave enough?
Looking for any hands to go up here. We've got time.
I think the other interesting thing would be, because obviously, as I said, there, it's not just in the writing your opportunity, it's also in the conversation. So on the back of today, thinking about the 4 or 5 questions you'll have up your sleeve, so that when you are speaking to potential volunteers, you can get a quick understanding of their circumstance and their personal motivations. I know during COVID-19, during the whole time, even with friends and extended, people in our network, I would have found it really useful if people had a T-shirt that just sort of said, yes, I'm still employed, because you sort of enter these conversations quite quite carefully to understand people's situation, because everything is changing so quickly. So yeah, having those, you know, questions up your sleeve so that, that when you're connecting with them, you can understand. So then you know the little tweaks you might be able to make to the volunteer opportunity, or brief others in your, you know, employees in your organisation about how it'll be a successful sort of partnership with the volunteer.
Absolutely. And because this How to Write a Great Volunteer Opportunity, whereabouts is that on your website?
Yeah, so it is on our website. You can find it in the footer of our website, and it's also for those who registered with Seek Volunteer in your dashboard in Seek Admin, in your administration section. It's a PDF on the right-hand side. Yeah, we are always constantly, regularly, always, and we're going to do it again, looking at our posting form to update it to be really as relevant and as easy as possible. At the moment, we don't have a section on there for sort of skills and experience, like that you could tick a box and go, here's the top 3 skills you could get, or anything like that. Might be a bit of overkill, but right now that would sit, you know, in terms of a marketing.
Uh-oh. I don't know if it's your internet, Beck, or mine that's frozen here. This happened last time as well, so hopefully it's just mine. You there? Oh, no.
If no one wants to share.
All right. We're back. Okay,
Yeah,
here we go.
sorry, not sure.
Sorry, it looks like you were frozen. We've got Lael back. Good on you, Lael. Thanks for being brave here and sharing what you've got. I'm just promoting you here to unmute you. So hopefully you can do that maybe.
Yeah, I thought I'd at least be brave, so you had some interest. Look, so I'm talking about a role within the hospital that's called a ward ambassador. And then I would say to you that we've had a really successful volunteer, Janet, who really recognises body language. She's comfortable talking to strangers one-on-one. She understands following, you know, quite stringent procedures and protocols. And she's very compassionate and empathetic. So a couple of the lines I had there was, my main one was comfort the sick. Excellent opportunity to use your skills during these unusual times. Second one was Victoria's largest hospital group needs capitals U. Yeah, because I think coming into your matrix before as to why different people do different things. Yeah, I think I can sort of bring in 2 groups, maybe, you know, those that are really attached to what's been going on at the moment with COVID. They really want to be a part of something, and particularly, you know, something that has been due to illness. And I think also that sense of being needed as well is quite important, even for those that are employed or unemployed. Yeah,
that sense of purpose and feeling is huge, Yeah,
absolutely. And then you asked about this, I think, what was the final one? Think of the 2 to 3 skills traits, so that they could develop. So I guess communicating with a really diverse group of people from all backgrounds. The area that our hospital service is in has the largest group of largest ethnic groups in the whole of the state. We're actually also, I think it's the largest Indigenous population in the state as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then they'd also get an understanding of the medical system, and, you know, if they were interested in going into that type of work, or even just to know what's been going on within the hospital during these times.
Because if I think about that, like, there's a lot of EQ involved with those volunteers. Need to be quite, if you're dealing with a lot of diverse people in the hospital setting, like all of the, and I think the one thing that I will hope that we can do over the next kind of few months is really help people tease out those things and those experiences, and how to actually write it on your resume, how to actually write that up in a professional way, because it's huge. Like, there's not, you know, that taking that experience into a workplace and being able to say how I will be adaptable to your culture and a good contributor to your culture based on this experience is huge. Yeah. Great, thank you.
Welcome.
That's it from me today, Scott. I really, unless anyone's got anything else that they would like to share, just putting up our 3 team members and our email there, always available to help and have a chat. Anyone that's been on the line today or was listening to this, we're really happy to talk you through this in detail and work through any challenges you might have.
Yeah, look, it's a pleasure, Beck. For those that don't know, Seek Volunteer occupies quite a substantial amount of the number of listings, doesn't it? Like a volunteer listing, something like 90% or something like that. So really, if you do want to find an opportunity or you want to go to where the people are looking, then Seek Volunteer really is the #1 place across the country. And so it's a testament to the work of the fine team that you lead there, Beck, that, you know, it is in such a strong position to respond to the COVID crisis and then to lead us out of it. So, you know,
I think the interesting thing on that, Scott, that I could just another insight to share, and maybe it's not really blowing our own trumpet. It's actually a data point to say what's going on in society. Is normally we do have 12,000 volunteer opportunities on Seek Volunteer, and with COVID-19, we sent an EDM to all our organisations and said, if you're not recruiting, take them off. And we actually have dropped down to just over 5,000. So we had a reduction in 50% of opportunities available. But in April and May, our visits didn't change and our expressions of interest didn't change. So we've halved the amount of opportunities, but we've still got a huge amount of traffic. So people were getting twice as many applications as they normally get. And so it just shows that the demand is there, interest in volunteers is there. I think the key now is helping them find the right opportunity and helping with that right match. I mean, it's a great stat that 75% will stay on. I think it's you know, if you do the right job at the start of the process, then you're more likely to have that success so strong as it is. So it's all about getting the fundamentals right, which this has been an excellent opportunity this afternoon to think about, because, you know, it is a hint of marketing as well as good people management that requires finding the right person. And so, look, thank you very much for your time, Beck. That's all right. Reach out anyone if you're interested to have
absolutely. And then next week, we've got Isaac from Tidy HQ, who is a CRM specialist based out of Victoria, that's going to be talking about his product. But today, we thank you, Beck, and thank you, Lael, as well, for your generosity of spirit and joining us on the line here today in particular, and everybody else for tuning in. So thanks, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday afternoon.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Beck.